king has walked in and they have to respect it. They pay you to not talk about things they don't want you to talk about. They've canceled me for talking about Harvey Weinstein, but he offered to suck my in front of all my people. Now, I've had to turn down $50 million 4 times just to protect my integrity, because P. Diddy be wanting to party. And you gotta tell him no. What do you expect? The guy married on her. What do that mean the product was? Martin tried to put me in my first dress. We were both invited to an Illuminati thing. One of those persons turned out to be Ludacris, and the other person turned out to be Katt Williams.
Katt Williams is exposing everyone in the industry, from Tiffany Haddish to Kevin Hart, from Steve Harvey to Harvey Weinstein. He's sharing the dark side of the industry and telling the truths that everyone has been hiding. So let's get into it. I don't know what happened to Katt Williams, but he switched up because he decided to turn on everyone in the industry. I'm talking about Steve Harvey, Kevin Hart, P. Diddy, so many people that he has worked with, and he's now sharing their dirty secrets. He went for Tiffany Haddish, Martin Lawrence, which actually I saw Martin Lawrence at a comedy show. It was like a $20 show, and he just like went on stage, and then Ali Wong went on stage, and it was wild. It was so LA. But Katt Williams explains that he feels safe on this podcast to share his truth. Katt said, "I've watched all these lowbrow comedians come onto this podcast and disrespect you in your face and tell you straight up lies." So this was Katt Williams' moment to set the record straight. The king has walked in and they have to respect it, only because I've not taken the shortcuts. I've not been funded. They're paying you to not talk about things they don't want you to talk about. They tell you that themselves. I can't do that because Now, a lot of people are looking at Katt in disbelief because he's going against a lot of people that he's typically working with, and it kind of seems like he's going against his own people. But he says race is not where the line is drawn. It's God's side and the other side. All of these deviants are catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It doesn't matter if you're Diddy or whoever you are. All the lies will be exposed. Now, I want to explore what Katt is saying here, but I also want to keep in mind that we can't go on his word completely. You know, we're living in the real world. There are multiple sides to every story, and it doesn't help when he's like, referring to Kim K as a and calling people certain names. It makes you question if he's like just really upset with how he's been treated in the industry, or if there is some truth here, which I think there's both, a little bit of both. Now, everyone has their opinions on Kim, but let's get into what he has to say about Kevin Hart, because Kevin Hart is so beloved by everyone. Well, Katt claims there's a reason for that, because he says that Kevin Hart is an industry plant, and claiming that his success has not been organic because he got movie deals before he even got to LA. No one had a memory of Kevin Hart working in the comedic scene and having a sold-out show. He said, "Have we heard of a comedian that came to LA? In his first year in LA, he had his own sitcom on a network show and had his own film called Soul Plane. No, we've never heard of that before that person or since that person." Kevin just did a documentary with Chris Rock where he shows you that his whole upbringing in comedy was on the East Coast. So how simultaneously was he here in LA doing the same thing? It didn't happen. So he's almost trying to say that Kevin made some deal with the devil and then got this position in the industry where he just kind of came out of nowhere. And he brought Tiffany Haddish in with him. But Kevin hasn't just sat here and taken it from Katt Williams. He has actually responded before in the past. They've had beef for a while. And maybe Katt is just jealous of Kevin's success. Maybe Kevin has a point there. I mean, if Katt isn't showing up to work, then they're gonna hire someone who will. But Kevin isn't the only person that Katt has had issues with, because he's also had issues with Cedric the Entertainer. Now, Cedric is a fellow comedian, and supposedly Katt claims that Cedric stole one of his bits verbatim that he performed in the 90s. After Katt saw Cedric go out and perform his joke, he said he thought that I was a no-name comedian, that he could just take this joke and nobody would know. He went on to say, "We found out he can't sing, he can't dance, he can't write jokes. He did 4 comedy specials. They're so bad you can't even find them on Netflix or on Tubi." Katt took this moment to go and attack Cedric on his weight and because of his stand-up comedy routines, claiming they're not original and they're not even funny. Cedric responded saying that it's an interesting time now. People get on these blogs and they just start spewing stuff that's not even factual. I am who I am, and I stand on that for sure. Now, we can't talk about Kevin Hart and we're not going to talk about Tiffany Haddish, because Katt has had a similar relationship to these two, just kind of discrediting their work. And maybe he's right. I'm not here to say he's right or wrong, but he's saying that Tiffany Haddish is only famous because she bangs white guys. Okay. Katt said Tiffany got famous off of someone else's writing, and anyone would have earned a critical acclaim reading of the Girls Trip script, which Katt claims that he saw way back in 2004. He added, Tiffany's been in comedy since she was 16, but claims no one knows her jokes. Then there's this. She ain't done a tour yet. She ain't done a special. She's not proven the ability to tell jokes back to back for an hour to nobody. It just kind of seems like Katt's a little bit bitter, but he's claiming that Brad Pitt may be the reason why Tiffany is out here getting all these moments on screen. Seems like Katt just wants to be as big of a star, but he's so bitter. You know, we don't really like Tiffany Haddish on this channel after what she did with those young kids. We talked about it before. I believe that video got like age restricted, so like it was problematic. Now that Tiffany has said her piece, let's talk about what Katt says about Kanye West. He says Kanye was the weird guy in the beginning, and people shouldn't be surprised by what's happened these years since becoming a household name. Quote, the dude started a church and kept cussing. Nobody in a black church said nothing. You would have thought all the pastors would have came up and said, you can't be a gospel artist, but they didn't. And he also brings up P. Diddy. This is where he eventually goes off on Kim Kardashian and Pete Davidson, but essentially saying like, you know, Kanye thinks he's so almighty godly, but in fact, he's just one of those on the other side that Katt is describing, which sounds like the evil side, the Illuminati side. He's not making it very clear. Katt has a point there. I'm pretty sure society has declared Kanye West mentally ill, so why are we surprised every time we see him behaving a certain way? It's like kind of like watching a train wreck over and over again and people get off on it. But one person I was super surprised to hear Katt Williams bring up was Harvey Weinstein, saying that they canceled me for talking about Harvey Weinstein before the Me Too movement, but he offered to suck my in front of all of my people at my agency. What am I supposed to do? He did all of that. I'm thinking I'm the only black person on the script. I get there, it's 3 other black guys there. Huh? I told him no. What do y'all do? Which I've heard a lot of Harvey Weinstein stories. We've heard from the victims, but I don't think I've ever heard of like a male victim. Like this is the first time I've ever heard anything like this. Steve Harvey is a big deal and he's a household name. He's on the game shows and you wouldn't really think he's problematic, but Katt's had his moments with him. Very similar to Kedrick, claiming that he had plagiarized the premise of Mark Curry's sitcom Hanging with Mr. Cooper for the Steve Harvey show. He was actually kind of mean to Steve Harvey, which I like Steve Harvey, but he said that there are 30,000 new scripts in Hollywood every year. Not one of them asked for a country bumpkin black dude that can't talk good and looks like Mr. Potato Head. Katt also claims that Steve claims that he had stopped doing stand-up because he had 7 TV shows, but when he stopped doing stand-up, he did not have 7 TV shows. He got into a comedy battle with Katt Williams in front of 10,000 people and he lost, and he claims that oh God, he was actually bald and that was a wig. Katt alluding that he embarrassed Steve so badly that he couldn't show his face and stand up again. I don't know if you guys have heard of Steve Harvey's homeless story, but Katt is calling it BS, saying that that is his story, saying that Mark Curry was touring with him 25 years ago and he was making $3,000 in cash a show, doing 5 shows a week. So he's accusing Steve of trying to rewrite history, make his past seem like it was way worse than it actually was, to gain sympathy, yet that just wasn't the case. And he's claiming that I had lived that life, you never did. Now, Rickey Smiley is another person that Katt Williams decided to go in on. Now, Katt claims that he put in his contract that he wouldn't work with Rickey Smiley again unless he's in a dress. Pretty much, they had an opportunity to work together, and I guess Rickey Smiley and like Tyler Perry, these men, they, you know, do drag essentially when they act, and Katt is trying to say that Rickey Smiley isn't funny unless he's in a dress. He can only play a woman, trying to say that his acting skills aren't there. But he also went on to make a comment saying that his like child had died like right around this time, and then he went on like speaking about it. I'm not entirely sure where in this timeline, but he's trying to at least suggest that maybe this man like sacrificed his kid and then went on the air and lied all about it. Now let's get to the part where he brings up people like Diddy and Michael Jackson. He said, quote, I came into this business saying I was going to expose. When I talked about Michael Jackson, when I talked about R. Kelly, they canceled me for these things. Because why would you talk about another black dude? Race is not where I draw the line. We've heard a lot of rumors about Diddy sleeping with other people in the industry and pressuring other people. Usher, Justin Bieber, so many more people. We've talked about this in past videos, so I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to pressure Katt as well. And it kind of seems like Katt is just a little bit upset with everyone in the industry and I guess with the lack of bluntness, like calling out people when they're not doing well, not performing well, or screwing you over. Like Michael Blackson, he called him out at one point saying that this comedian who is like coming out here with this like fake African accent and wearing like this attire, he just isn't getting booed enough, which I think is maybe a little bit insensitive. I mean, Michael Blackson said Katt Williams is a very smart slur. He took shots at the top 10 comedians alive today, so we can all respond and make him relevant again, which is a good point. And this does kind of seem like a strategy. I mean, when you're going for such big names, people who are going to trend, people like Joe Rogan. He said Joe Rogan failed to have comedians on his show. If you were a comedian that cussed, you were ridiculed by the mainstream comedy gist. That would be like me on Joe Rogan. Joe does not want me there. I need to be on Shannon. Joe got 6 comedians that never been funny and he wants to push it out. That's how it is. Now, I don't know if Joe saw this interview or what, but he put out a tweet saying, I love Katt. He's one of my favorite comics. I'd love to have him on. We talk about him all the time. If he's down, I'll make it happen. So they invited him on that show. And if this was some kind of like strategy to get some press, it's doing its job because now he's probably going to go on Joe Rogan's show. I'm excited to talk to you guys about Ludacris because that's where we hear a little bit about the Illuminati. So when talking about his relationship with Ludacris, he says there was a crossroads where we both were invited to an Illuminati thing and it had to be one or the other of us and decisions had to be made. So it was both of us, we were equal. One of us had to cut off all the hair and couldn't do the sideburn thing anymore with the points. And the next person, they said they were going to get 200 million because they were going to pay them 10 million to do a movie, 20 movies. And that's how the conversation happened. One of those persons turned out to be Ludacris and the other person turned out to be Katt Williams. Ludacris responded to Katt Williams in a video freestyle he posted to Twitter. In it, he rapped that he had never been Illuminati and that addiction's on the rise, calling Katt Williams a drug addict, which we've heard a few people say at this point. I have to admit, I love how all these people are responding and the fact that Ludacris came out with like a rap against Katt Williams. I mean, that is a moment. As I mentioned earlier, I recently saw Martin Lawrence, like unexpectedly. I did not plan it. And of course, Katt Williams has his Martin Lawrence story saying, Martin tried to put me in a dress when he had to go on his hiatus. He told me, Katt, when I come back, I need you. You are my young partner. You're my brother in comedy. When I come back, just promise me that you'll be in my next movie. It'll be me and you. He said he got the script Big Mama House too. And when Martin tried to put him in a dress, he was not going to do it. Since the airing of this podcast, there's been a lot of criticism on Shannon for having Katt Williams on and entertaining his ideas. Shannon has gone out saying, I'm not a journalist. I'm not here to get the truth. I'm here to get these people's truth and to hear them out, which I totally respect. I think there are multiple truths to some situations. Of course, when it comes to like ball and things like that, we get to the bottom of it. But like, Katt Williams may have had his experience. Maybe he was high half the time, so he's got a different perspective. But I actually respect that Shannon's like allowing him to speak. And if there aren't, if it's not true, if there are falsehoods, people will correct them. And that's exactly what all these people did. But I want to hear what you guys think in the comments below. Let's go